Hey guys, in this video we're going to create a simple web application with Flask and Python. Flask is a micro web framework that makes it super easy to handle the back end of a web application, and it's pretty easy to learn when compared to something like Django, which is a little more complicated. Before we get started, I'm going to show what we're going to make today. It's going to be this simple form here. You enter a city, enter a country, hit get weather, and then it loads the current weather for that city. To do this, we're going to use an API, openweathermap.org, to get the data. Let's go and get started and make this web application. First thing we do is we need to install Flask. So let's go down to a terminal window, open one up, type pip install Flask. This will install Flask. Once we have Flask, we're ready to get started. Let's open up a text editor. We're going to make a file called app.py. Now we're going to go and go to a browser, search for Flask documentation. It'll take you to a page that looks like this. If you scroll down, you'll see a minimal application. Click on that. You'll get some starter code right here. Go ahead and copy that. And we're going to go paste that into our text editor. This is how every Flask app will start. The first line, from Flask import Flask. We're importing the module we just installed. App equals Flask double underscore name double underscore is just initializing a Flask app with the name app. And then down here below we have our URL route and our view. Every Flask app will have URL routes and views. The way we create that, we create a function, and then we put a decorator above that function. We type app.route and pass in a URL route as a parameter. And here we're just passing in a slash to go to the root of the URL. Let's go ahead and save this. Let's go ahead and run our application. So open a terminal window up. In this directory, we'll type flask run. And you'll see here it says running on 127.0.0.1 colon 5000. 127.0.0.1 is just localhost, and then 5000 is just port 5000. So if we go to a browser, you can type in localhost colon 5000 or just 127.0.0.1. Load that, and it'll load our application. You see hello world just printed on the screen. Let's go back to our text editor. This is great, but it'd be much easier if we didn't have to type out all the text inside this file, and instead just load up HTML files instead. And we can do that by using a function that we'll import up here called render template. And now we can go down here, we can delete this hello world text, use that render template, and pass in a HTML file. Call this one index.html. Also going to go change this function or this view to index. Go ahead and save that. Now we're going to make a folder. We're going to call it templates. Now inside that templates folder, make a new file called index.html. Flask will look for a folder called templates to find all of the HTML templates in. So you need to have a folder called exactly that and keep all the templates within that folder. Now I'm going to use Bootstrap to make this look better. So let's go to a browser window, go to getbootstrap.com, come down here, click Get Started. If you scroll down, you should see the starter template right here. Go ahead and copy this in. Go to the text editor and paste that in there. I'm going to save this. We'll then go back to our browser and then reload our application. You'll see now that the hello world is now at H1 heading like it was in this template. Now it's bigger and bolder. And we can change this to be whatever. We can delete this, just say hello, save that, and then reload our application, and it goes to hello. Let's go ahead and build out our HTML index file to create this form that we want. So back in the text editor, I'm going to delete this H1 heading right here and start building out our form. So I'll create a div, put a style, so equal background color, and the color will be hex code of F5, F5, F5. We'll also add a height of 100 viewport heights, so it spans the entire height of the screen. Within that div, we'll create another div, give it a class of container. This is a bootstrap class that holds all the elements. I'll also give that a height of 100. We'll create another bootstrap class row and justify content center. And then within that div, we'll also create another bootstrap class column-md-6, column-sm-12, column-xs-12, padding top-5. So real quickly, this just creates a grid system within Bootstrap. We'll create a row, we'll create a column. On medium screens, it'll be half the screen width. On small and extra small screens, it'll be the entire width of the screen. You can read more up on Bootstrap on their documentation if you don't know what this already is. Now within this column, we can go ahead and create our form. So create a form, give it a class card border -0, padding -3, shadow -small. Now in here we can create our first element, create a div, give it a class form group. Within this div, we'll create input type equals text, class equals form control, name equals city, placeholder equals Indianapolis or any city you want. Doesn't really matter. This name equals city attribute is very important because we will use it in Python to pull out the data that's in this field and save it in a variable. I'm going to close out that div. I'll create another form group right here. We'll create input type equals text, class equals form control, name equals country, placeholder equals US. This is pretty much the same. We just want to change our name attribute to be something unique here for this country element, so I just call it country for that. Now we have both of our elements we need for the data. Now we know a way to submit the form. So to do that, we'll create another div, give it a class of form group. Now within here, we'll create a button, give some Bootstrap classes, btn, btn-info, btn-block. And then within this button, we'll call it get weather, and close out the tag, close out that div. And now all we need to do is just close out all the other tags we have open. So our form, a bunch of divs, and one more. And that is how our index.html will look. We can go ahead and save that. Now let's go ahead and run that to reload our application. Looks good except the button. Something's wrong with the button. Let's check that again real quick. I've met this for the class. Come back and reload that. And our button's fixed. There we go. And now that we have a working form, we gotta make it do something now. So to do that, we'll go to openweathermap.org. You'll need to sign up to create an account and get an API key before we can do anything else. So go ahead now and create an account. And now let's look at what data we'll get from this API. So I have this file called data.json that I created that has all the data that we'll pull. You'll see we have these Python dictionaries here, these key value pairs, and down here we have temperature, humidity, and the wind speed. These are the data we're going to pull out right here. Now to do this, we need to use a few different libraries in Python, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new file here. Call it test.py just to demonstrate this before we put it into our application. Now the first thing we need to do is import two libraries. So import request and import JSON. If you don't already have these libraries, you need to install them with pip again, like we did with Flask earlier. We'll hard code in our values, our form data, and then API key will go here. Go ahead and just copy yours in right here. And now we have our initial variables and our modules imported. Let's go ahead and make a request. So we'll create a variable called weather URL. Set that equal to request.get. And now we got to input we'll put an f string in here. Now if you don't know what f strings are, they're really easy ways to format strings in Python. I think they were added in 3.5 or 3.6, so you'll need to have at least that version for them to work. But you can just write variables directly within curly brackets to pass them into a string. So here we're going to put a URL. I got this from the Open Weather Map documentation. So you go ahead and find it there about how to make requests to their API. Weather app ID equals clear brackets, pass in our API key variable, and Q equals pass in our city variable, comma, pass in our country variable, units equals imperial. There we go. Now we have our request done. We need to go ahead and convert the data into Python objects that we can use. So we'll go weather data equals weather URL.json. That's all we're really going to do. Now from here we can actually go and get this data right here. We have all this data here saved in our weather data variable. So now we need to go find the values that we want to pull out of this data. So we want to go find our temperature first. To do that, we go to the root, down to the main, down to the temp, and pull the value out from that key. So that can be done by creating a variable called temp equals. The root will just be the name of the variable we already have, weather data, square brackets, main, square brackets, temp. So what we're doing here, we're going from the root down to the main dictionary, and then pulling out the value from the temp key. So back in our data, we have our root right here, down to the main dictionary right here, down to the temp right here, and it pulls out this value associated with this key. We'll add one more thing in here. We'll add a round function to round it to the nearest whole number, just make it easier to read for the user. I'll do the same thing for humidity. Weather data, go from the root first. Now we need to go where our humidity data is stored. So data.json root down to, it's right here, so it's inside our main, and then humidity. So it's just like the other one. We go main humidity. The final variable we need is wind speed. That will be weather data main, or no. It's just somewhere else. Where's this at? So we come from our root, we go down, our wind speed's down here, so it's wind and then speed. So wind, speed. And now we have all three variables saved within these, or all three values saved in these variables. Let's go ahead now and add this code to our app.py file. So at the top here, we'll need to import a couple things. We got to import our request that we just imported. Also import JSON. But we also need one more thing to handle form data. Up here in our Flask import, we'll add a request. And that will be used to handle the post requests we get later on. Down here in our app.route, we also need to allow a method for post. So right now, by default, it's only allowing get methods, but we want to allow both get and post methods. So we'll put a comma here, type methods equals square brackets get comma post. Now we have everything set up. Let's go ahead and look for a post request. So down here in our view, in our index function, if request.method is equal to post city equals request.form city. Now what we're doing here is we're checking if we get a post request. So if we submit the form, we're then taking the form data and find the name city. So back in our index.html, this name city, we're pulling up the value that's in this input field now. We'll do the same thing for country. Country equals request.form country. And then we also want to put our API key here. API key equals, and that goes right here. Now from here we do exactly what we just did. Whether URL equals request.get f-string http api.open weather map.org/2.5 or /data/2.5/weather app ID equals API key and Q equals passing our city variable, comma, passing our country variable, and units equals imperial. Below that, we convert the data, weather data equals weather URL.json, and we gotta go pull our data out now. Temp equals weather data main temp, and then we'll put the round function here. This function is built in, there's no import needed for that, and we'll add in our humidity equals weather data main humidity wind speed equals weather data wind speed. And one more time here, just to go this one more time, our wind speed variable, go to our data, we go from the root down to the wind dictionary to the speed key, pull out this value, so you write that in here as weather data for the root, wind, and then speed. Now after this, we can go ahead and return a template. Return render template, and we'll go ahead and render our result.html, which will be a template I'll create here in a second. But we also need to pass in these variables into the template as well. So that is done by doing this. You go to these parameters right here, put a comma, type in your variables. Temp equals temp, humidity equals humidity, wind speed equals wind speed, city equals city. So what we're doing here is we're creating a variable called temp, and we're setting it equal to temp. And now it's passed into this function here, so now it's a variable we can use in our templates. Humidity equals humidity, same thing here. We're creating a variable called humidity, passing in this humidity variable into this variable. So now with how this is set up, if we get a GET request, all this code right here will be skipped, and it'll just render this template that shows the form. If we submit the form, we'll get a POST request, and now all of this data right here is ran. So the last thing we need to do is we need to make sure that when this form is submitted, we get a POST request. So go back to index.html, come to our form here, right here, put a method equals post. Now this form we submitted as a POST request. Now let's go ahead and create our result.html, new file, call it result. Now this file will have a lot of same code as the index file would be. We need to come here and copy in all this right here, come down here and copy in all this, and just change this middle part. But there's an easier way to do that, especially if lots of templates. You can create a base template that has all this duplicate code in it, and then you just load in the code you need for each template and its own file. So the way we'll do that is we'll create another file call it base.html. Now we go to index.html. We're going to take all this duplicate code that we don't need to repeat, and we'll cut it out here. And we'll paste it into here. We'll come down here. Now we'll go back to our index.html. Come down here, grab this, the bottom here, cut that out, and then come back to our base here and paste that all in there. And now we want to tell it where to put the code at, which will be right here. To do that, we'll create a Jinja 2 code block. Jinja 2 is just a template engine that Flask uses that allows you to build these templates, and their syntax will look one of two ways. It will either look like this, with 2% signs within the curly brackets, or if passing a variable, it'll be just 2 curly brackets like this. We'll use this one later, but for now we're just using this. Now you want to create a content block within this. To do that, we type block content. Now below this, we got to close that block. So the same syntax here, in block content. So now the Jinja will look for a content block on each of our HTML pages, and we'll paste that data within these two tags. So now back at index, we need to tell it that this is the content block we want. So we'll come up here, create another code block, type the same thing, block content. Now below at the bottom here, we'll do the exact same thing, and we'll close the tag. In block content. So now Jinja 2 knows this is the content block that needs to be pasted within these two tags. So we'll go right here. Now we need to tell it to extend this as the base template. And the way we do that is we go back to our index, to the top here. We'll need to type create our code block first, and then type extends base.html. Now this is how Jinja now knows to take that as a base and put all this code right here in between the content block tags. So now we have our normal file again, just like it was. So let's go back to our result. Let's build this out. So first, let's extend the base template again. Extends base.html. Now let's open the code block. Block content. And we'll go ahead and close out as well. In block content. Now in here, we can go ahead and build out our result.html. So we'll go, it'd be pretty similar to our index. We'll create a div, give it a style, background color, and create the same background color we had, F5, F5, as well as a height of 100, the viewport heights. We'll create another div here, a class of container, div class, oh I should put a height of 100 as well, and then a div class equals row justify content center, and then a div class column dash md dash 6 column dash sm dash 12 column dash xs dash 12 padding top dash 5. Now within this column, we'll go ahead and create another div class equals card border dash 0 padding dash 3 shadow dash small text dash center. So once again here, we create a container, a Bootstrap container. We'll create a row and a column. The grid system they have in Bootstrap and medium screens, it'll be half the screen width. On small and extra small screens, it will be the entire screen width. And we add a little padding on the top there. And then we create our card, which is our Bootstrap class. Take away the border, add some padding, create a small shadow, and center the text within this. Now that we have that set up, we can go and enter our data. So let's create an H3 heading. Type current weather 4. Now I'm going to pass in our city variable here. And so how we do that, we take 2 curly brackets and just type it within here. So whatever we called it in our function back here, so we called it city. That's what we use in here. So we type city. Create an H5 heading. We'll call it temperature, and we'll pass in our temperature variable, which will be called temp. Type temp there. Close that out. Create our H5. Put our humidity variable in, which will be called humidity. Type in right here, humidity. Close that out. H5. Wind speed, which we call wind underscore speed. Type that in right here. Close that out. Now let's go ahead and add our units to this. So temperature will be in Fahrenheit, so an F there. Humidity will be percent, so let's add a percent sign there. And wind speed will be miles per hour, MPH there. Now let's add some styles to this. There'll be some bootstrap styles again. We'll put a text dash muted class equals lead text dash muted lead text dash muted, and then one more here, and these just change the font a little bit and they make the text a light gray. That's what these classes are doing. And now let's go ahead and close out all of our divs that we have open right now. One there, and two more, and one more. And that is our result.html. Go and save that. And now we can go ahead and run our application again. Let's go back here, open up here. I went ahead and paused the video to enter my API key so this would work. So now we're going to go and enter a city, enter a country, hit submit. And now you'll see current weather for Indianapolis, temperature 33 Fahrenheit, humidity is not there. Why is it not there? I probably spelled it wrong inside our result. Humidity, probably spelled it wrong somewhere right here. Did not spell it correctly. Let's fix this real quick. We'll then save this, come back here, let's reload localhost 5000, Indianapolis, US, get weather, there we go. Now we have current weather for Indianapolis, temperature 33 degrees Fahrenheit, humidity 69%, wind speed 8.05 miles per hour. And that's where the video is going to end today. Thank you for watching. We'll have the source code in the description, as well as the links to our social media and website as well in the description. But thank you for watching. I'll see you next video.